It's another week in the For Your Reference household, and it is another delightful, delicious course in our 2022 Reference Degustation, a foot-long celebration of quippy, Tarantino, debauchery. We are nearing the end. We are almost at the Django, Jamie hanging upside down cherry of it all. For those that are joining us, make sure you check out the previous course offerings: Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Jackie, Pam Grier, motherfucking Brown, Kill Bill. And let's get on to the show. Buongiorno, friends and non-American lovers. Welcome back to the For Your Reference podcast. You got your host, Katie.
And Doti.
Shift the heel in your jacket pocket and find your seat for a cathartic screening of cinematic history. Join the ranks of bastards with us with Inglorious Basterds this week.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! The best and the most lauded bastards of them all, Quentin Jerome Tarantino, come through with that Jackie Brown range.
Wow.
Okay, well, let's get into general stats and information so we can just, sink our, in the late hour, red-painted toenail of it all, teeth into this glorious, bastardized everything of a film. It was released in May of 2009, a budget of $70 million. We have many things to say about Tarantino, OT, but one of the things that continuously surprises me is how much Tarantino can fucking deliver with the budget that he has. Because $70 million, especially for such a cinematic film like Inglorious Bastard, is quite a feat.
It is a feat. I think it's a surprise to me that it's taken this long for me to watch this as well.
Oh, you're spilling out, OT. You're spilling out.
I am.
Well, culminating in a splooshy worldwide gross of $321.4 million. Get your abacus out, OT, because I'm pretty sure this is the highest box office we've covered so far in the Reference Degustation.
Whoa.
Deserved. But unfortunately, again, Jackie Brown didn't get her due. So go and watch Jackie Brown, love and support, and just very respectfully follow Pam Grier, very understandably. In regards to actors, we have Brad Pitt, Diane Kruger, Eli Roth, and OT, Christoph Waltz. Wow. I said it in Pulp Fiction. Samuel L. Jackson is to Pulp Fiction as what Rosie Perez is to White Man Can't Jump, is as Christoph Waltz is to Inglorious Basterds. Man, I am in love and I want to stay forever in Waltz land.
He was bloody good.
It was fucking brilliant.
He was. His performances in anything that you watch him in, he just gives 100, and he just without it seeming as if he's doing too much, because usually when we get to see other actors who will remain unnamed for now, it's just so bloody obvious, and it gets in the way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I guess it'll be interesting to see if the love train continues in Django with Christoph Waltz. But I am living in this moment. I am elevated on a cloud with Christoph Waltz on my bosom, if he will allow me.
Mm-hmm. He should.
Right. Well, let's get into first impressions, because you've kind of peppered throughout this Reference Degustation that you've tried watching Inglorious Basterds like 10 times and you couldn't get past 5 minutes. And I don't even understand how the math is not mathing, OT, essentially. So let's get into first impressions, and then shout outs to our patrons. They also contributed to common and recurring themes in Tarantino's filmography. So start us off, OT.
At the start of this journey, I said I was not the biggest Tarantino fan. And when Inglourious Basterds came out, I'd already missed a lot of his work before. I didn't feel any pressure whatsoever to watch it. but I did try. And I think I just never was able to get myself in the mood of sitting down and watching it. And I just stopped it. I never got past 5 minutes, despite the fact that I've tried watching it multiple times.
Yeah.
But am I glad that this was part of the ensemble? Because as Katie mentioned, I referenced that I was dreading watching this.
Mm-hmm.
And I was even looking through, I was like, why didn't you even choose Hateful Eight? And we do that instead.
Yeah.
But
our patrons knew best. This is voted by the patrons, by the way. Thank you again.
But I'm glad. I'm glad that no one listens to me.
Okay, we don't need to go down that alley, OT. You can register your qualms on the official For Your Reference agenda.
And I love Jackie Brown, but I think this might just have nipped it.
Oh, no way.
It might just have nipped it from the top spot.
Hey, whoa. Friends and lovers, we've talked about this and we very cutely giggle about this, how we'll watch a 2.5 hour film. And despite having a podcast, I will turn to OT yearning for some deep discussion. And I ask him what he thought and he's like, it was okay. So I don't necessarily get an inkling of how he's feeling. And this is absolutely something you need to prep me for, because I thought we were swimming in the splooshy waters of Pam Grier. Wow. Well, before I get into my first impressions, let's do what we've been doing this whole reference degustation. Let's rank them. I think Kill Bill, it kind of killed all of our excitement. So I think it's at the bottom, right?
Fact.
And then possibly I think we both agree that Reservoir Dogs was next.
Yep.
And then let's go with your ranking because we might differ.
So mine, as it stands, would be Inglourious Basterds.
Wow.
Jackie Brown, Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, Kill Bill.
You know what? Even when we did the Jackie Brown episode, I was saying because Pulp Fiction was such a fundamental part of my personality for a long part of my life, I had to keep like Pulp Fiction and Jackie Brown together. But guess what, OT?
Mm-hmm.
Out of the millions of things we don't agree with, I agree with that ranking.
Welcome to the party, mate.
Jackie Brown is better than Pulp Fiction.
100%.
Sorry for those in the back or those that chose to skip forward. Jackie Brown is better than Pulp Fiction. I will see you and I will fight you on my Twilight forums, friends and lovers.
So much better. It makes me sad that it's been dethroned, but in the space of the week that it stayed on top, I am happy it got to.
I got a bit excited, and maybe it's just fresh off watching Inglourious Basterds. I give me the grace, friends and lovers. Give me the grace to change my mind, just like I give grace to non-gendered film bros to change their mind. I don't know. At the moment, Inglourious Basterds, because it is so cinematic, yeah? It's a lot more cinematic. There's a lot that gets pulled into it. It is taken more seriously. It is more of an earnest attempt at storytelling from Tarantino. So I will say, but you know, very possibly Jackie Brown might take out the top spot by the end of this, or maybe Django. Do you think Django could dethrone your Inglourious Basterds or not?
I feel like it'll be battling with Kill Bill, to be honest, but.
But that's one of those things, like this whole journey of the reference degustation has been like, do you remember that wrestler? And he kind of, his whole gimmick was to come out with different sports equipment.
I reckon he's more Katango. You don't necessarily gravitate towards him, but he can produce moments of fucking brilliance.
Well, to be fair, the power of assholery compelled me to say you suck while we're watching Kill Bill. So I think no, I think you're right, because this whole journey, and I think that's also part of the thing of like when you start to elevate like celebrities and directors above reproach, you kind of have to defend every fucking thing, even if it's me. Well, it could be like on the most severe, like hurtful and offensive, but even on the most like lesser scale, like just mediocre, right? So like, because I'm not fully invested, because I haven't invested in Tarantino toe coin, I can just enjoy it for what it is, right? But that also means when I don't expect to enjoy something, when I don't expect to love, because I actually really love this film, I found myself head back, giggle, gaggling, cackling all around the town watching this fucking film. And I really didn't feel like I was going to experience that. Jojo Rabbit, you can keep. Inglourious Basterds, that's where I stay.
And this even lays a better veneer of what the fuck Waititi was trying to do with Jojo Rabbit, because if I had watched Inglorious Basterds, I'd have been like, well, what's the fucking point, mate?
Fuck you, tiger. Well, I think it's like when you're talking about such heavy subject matter, right? It needs to be traversed with the same, even if it's like a satirical, even if it's like a rewriting of history, it still needs to be held with the same sort of weight. And Jojo Rabbit was pretty much like a child presenter sort of show, sort of presentation. And that's absolutely the difference. And there was obviously moments of levity. There was definitely moments of humor, a lot of it at the expense of Americans, which I'm all about. My favorite type of Americans are the ones that realize the Americanism sometimes get in the way of being American. Like, I fucking love it. Like, I love this film so much. And, you know, we will talk about the tonality, but I guess that's what I was driving at. Because I'm not fully invested in Tarantino toe coin, I can just take the films for what they are, but it also penetrates deeper when I enjoy a Tarantino film. And that's absolutely what we had. You know, we talked about Kill Bill and we expected to love it and how it fucking disappointed us. Like, that was the GameStop right there. It started crashing.
I come into this when he's already at a deficit because he's fucking Tarantino and he's not my favorite person in the world.
Yeah.
So for him to overcome that barrier in my mind, and then to the point of me just fully immersing myself into the environment, enjoying the brilliance in his cinematography, to the point that I don't fucking care anymore. It's amazing. And I think, to me, at the end of the movie, I fucking clapped. I never clap for anything. So I felt like I needed to watch this in a cinema to enjoy it even further. And I think it'll probably be a rewatch sometime. I know we get some classic sort of venues in cinemas here in Australia that
they're actually doing Kill Bill for Valentine's Day.
Yeah. So hopefully Inglorious Basterds will be up in the queue, not in the distant future.
And I think that's exactly it, because, you know, part of the branding of Tarantino, what we know him for, like the Pulp Fiction of it all, which is so much fun, but then you kind of make an assumption, and I think maybe that's where you were traversing years earlier when you tried Inglorious Basterds. Like branding can be such a powerful thing, but it can also work against a director when they show range.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let's get into common and recurring themes. These are broken up into sections. I'm very excited to get into the first one, which is general questions, because it shows the evolution throughout our watching of Tarantino filmography. This is coming from Jamie. What are your views on Quentin Tarantino's approach to violence? How did you feel the violence was in this film?
I don't think I've seen violence until today. Everything was bloody mild up until today.
It's like they borrowed the Mortal Kombat like sound pack.
Yeah, it is brutal in its violence depiction, and I know I'm pretty much desensitized to a lot of the violence and gore.
Yeah,
but it took me aback. I was like, wait, he's taking it a notch farther.
Yeah,
it was and not in a distracting way, at least to me. I think it definitely there was a lot more violence in this, rightly so, just based on what the movie's about.
Yeah.
Showing the bastards in their sort of anger, in their retaliation, and them taking back or killing every Nazi they can get their hands of in the most brutal way possible as well. It makes fucking sense, and I was there for it.
Oh, absolutely. 100% agree. And, you know, it wasn't consistently violence throughout. There were considered moments of violence, and it was paired with chilling fucking dialogue. Like, even if we go back to one of the earlier scenes in the film where we have Colonel Lander out in the countryside in France, and there's something so intriguing. There's something about Christoph Waltz, like his performances, that draws you in, even though you know that there's danger afoot, right? We are the moths to the Christoph Waltz flame. Like, he's just enhancing us, making us draw into him, even though we know it's not a safe place. And everything is so fucking effortless about his performance as Hans Lander. And in that scene, just so naturally, casually, well, asking for milk, but the way that he carried the conversation. And I remember very early just being latched into the framing of the dialogue in this film and the way that the atmosphere was built based on the dialogue. But I guess coming back to the approach to violence, even before we had that brutal scene of the henchmen coming in and shooting up all of the floors, there was a simmering going on. And that was all indicated by the violence. And I think on a more fun, yee-haw sort of note, we had Butch, in Pulp Fiction making a decision, and that simmering, right, before that sort of violence, before that gut punch. And that's why, friends and lovers, foreplay is very important. But the approach to violence was a two-punch, right? It was the framing of the dialogue, and then it was the brutality of the violence. Because, again, like you said, it's so easy to get desensitized to the violence, but when you contextualize it, when you bring the inhumanity into it, it really digs a lot deeper into the human psyche and the human experience.
100% agreed. I think you spoke about the first sort of scene in the movie. I think that's the moment where I realized, what the hell was I trying to watch back then? Because at the start, I think in my mind, it always started with the Brad Pitt scene, and I just couldn't get past it. But Christoph Waltz, what he did in that 5 minutes, he drove Perrier into tears.
Yeah.
Bad people don't need smart people, man.
No, but I think it's also like, weapons are scary, but words are fucking piercing. I guess that's why you have parts of the United States trying to ban fucking books, but that's a story for another day.
He's just brilliant in this. The fact that he started off really strongly and it carried through the whole movie, and you knew that the shoe was going to drop somewhere, but that's the enjoyment of it all. Just the back and forth, the not knowing what's going to be the spin.
Well, even if the shoe falls off, Hans Lander will pick it up and put it in his pocket.
Yeah.
He's just walking around the whole evening. Even when he was like laughing at Shoshana, he had a whole heel in his pocket. All right, mate.
Well, you have Prince Charming with Cinderella.
Is that a bulge in your pocket, Tarantino? Or are you just happy to see me? Friends and lovers, you know the deal. We find someone to simp over, and Christoph Waltz is this in Inglorious Basterds. Okay, let's get to the next question in the general questions. Rob is talking about the QT-verse theory, films within films.
Well, there was Samuel L. Jackson in there as well, wasn't it?
He stays booked and busy in the Tarantino books. Okay, well, I guess while we're here on a very playful note, because I think like Jackie Brown, it feels very insular as opposed to the other Tarantino films. So let's keep it light, OT. Which Samuel Jackson in Tarantino films do you think this is? Do you think this is Jules from Pulp Fiction? Or do you think this is Sauron's cousin in Compton in Jackie Brown?
Definitely Jackie Brown.
Brown-haired, ponytail, Kangol wearing Samuel Jackson? All right, the next question we have is from Jamie. This is I've really enjoyed this question, by the way. All patrons of equal creed, but I've really enjoyed this question. Are you ready, OT?
Give it to me.
I'll oblige, sir, after the podcast. But the question is Quentin Tarantino the best contemporary director to match visuals and music?
I hated what he did with Kill Bill.
Agree.
I loved what he did here, but it wasn't to the extent of how I loved it in
Reservoir Dogs. Pulp Fiction.
Yeah. I think those were just leagues apart. But here we went back to the sort of okay, we'll pare it back from what we did with Kill Bill and we'll make it more cinematic and add appropriate soundtrack and music and score throughout. And I love that. It wasn't as distinctive as the previous movies that we've mentioned, but it did much and it did gel, and I did find it quite enjoyable, but not to the extent. So I think it was just appropriate for me in this. I wouldn't go far to say, oh, based off this movie, if this was my first watch of Tarantino, be like, oh, wow, look what he's done with the score in this.
I would say that I felt reborn in the waters of Tarantino because I feel like there's so many elements to love in his considered detail when it comes to score and soundtrack. And he found a way to embed it in a more earnest sort of attempt in storytelling in Inglourious Basterds, because you still hear, I guess, you know, for lack of better knowledge, he has like that westerny sort of like vibes that he likes to get, whether it's through song or through score. And he found a way, like even at the start, like the opening scene, the piece of music that was used felt very Tarantino. Like, you know what I mean? Like without having to explain it. Again, it's like a gentrified Tarantino. It's a Tarantino for the mainstream masses. It's a Tarantino for your consideration if you're nasty. So going back to the, I guess a branch off of this original question, I do believe that Quentin Tarantino is the best to match visuals and music in regards to tonality, in regards to setting the mood, setting the tone, letting us know what sort of world we're going to be diving into. I agree with myself, but I don't necessarily he's the best out there to do that, especially when Baby Boy exists and you got Tyrese in a whole womb.
Yeah, I can get behind that.
Okay, let's move on to direction/stylistic choices. This is from Ben. At what point does Quentin Tarantino's stylized, hyper-aware of itself dialogue become a hindrance to the film rather than part of its magic/charm?
I don't think it got in the way in this at all.
No, it was the best part of it.
Yeah.
I think the only time the dialogue got in the way was Kill Bill.
Yeah. Yeah. That was the weakest in dialogue. But wow, did he just rejuvenate himself and us in Inglorious Basterds, because I just could not look away. I hung on and clung on to every funky word. It's just, he has a way with his fucking pen.
Yeah.
And he might not be the sort of, Shakespearean fucking playwright, but what he does and how he delivers it, it makes it so much fun, enjoyable, and bloody relatable. I was connecting to characters I didn't fucking care for. I started this journey with a Tarantino baggage, and slowly, that baggage is getting lighter just based off his bloody work and his skill with a pen.
Yeah.
And that's undeniable. And I felt like when I watched Kill Bill, it was so infuriating because I felt like it missed a mark where, yes, it's plotted as one of its best. I'm pretty sure it's rated as probably one of his highest.
Yeah.
But at the end of it, it just fell short. Mm-hmm. It was very elementary to me, and when I watched this, I just felt, okay, he's back. He's back. You know, the guy that gave us Jackie Brown is bloody back, and he's putting in as much effort without trying to be the center of attention, without trying to please every bro out there.
Yeah.
And that's what I loved about it.
Oh, absolutely. And apparently he did make a very brief cameo. On IMDb, he is credited as the first sculpt Nazi, as well as an American soldier in Pride of Nation.
So, to me, that's the level of involvement you should have, you know. Not
focus on your other multi-hyphenates. You don't need to be in the film.
Yeah, not to have a 20-minute rant and call someone the N-word in Pulp Fiction, you know. That was just way off. That was uncalled for.
And don't worry, friends and lovers, if you're new to this, we do have a whole section called Racism/N-word. So we will get there. But yeah, like I just want to quickly talk about Kill Bill, and hopefully we'll never have to talk about it again, naturally with the reference degustation, we are comparing films in the filmography as we go along. What really bothered me about Kill Bill is the humor was at the expense of Asian people. But in Inglourious Basterds, most of the humor was surrounding how fucking like ignorant or blissfully ignorant or how unaware Americans were in regards to the world, and how the rest of the world doesn't really regard America either. Right?
Yeah.
That was part of the fun. That was part of the humor. And the Americans were the butt of the joke. And I guess even to some level, even Quentin Tarantino made his own concedences when he was writing the script as well, because you can see that, sort of come through. But with Kill Bill, it felt very caricature. It felt, I like Kung Fu. Let me put something in randomly. I like really brutal anime sequences. Let me put that in. Right. So it felt very collage-y in the privileged white tapestry of screenwriting. Right. But Inglourious Basterds, we saw so much depth. We saw so much dimension naturally. Right. We're talking about France. We're talking about Germany. Okay. If you want to talk about caricatures, we've got the Italian sort of portrayals as well.
Buongiorno.
Oh man, friends and lovers. I never really got into the. I will acknowledge OT. So I'm not going to say Brad and Angelina. I'm going to say Brad and Jennifer.
Thank you.
But I never got into the swooning of Brad Pitt. Like, he was always there, cool, super cool guy. I've never watched Snatch, but I don't know. I think I'm in love with him just because of his role in this film. He was so fucking ridiculous. And also, I guess pointing out, I've seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I fucking hated everything about that film, but I also felt like he brought nothing. But again, maybe that had nothing to do with him and it was the overall film. But I don't know, friends and lovers, sign me up to your fan club Brad Pitt newsletters. I will subscribe.
He was really good in this. He played that to perfection.
Like, he was so American. He was so American it hurt, and I loved it. And I laughed and I cringed every moment he was on the fucking screen.
Yeah, and that's what we were there for. And that's why we were like, this feels so much different to Kill Bill. And I'm just glad that we got to the end of it thinking that, hey, we've got another gem in here that we could probably rewatch a couple of times more.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's move on to our beloved Julio. Thank you for being so patient. 5 films in, we are finally addressing your contribution, rewriting history.
Yeah, there's a lot of rewriting history here. We all know Hitler didn't die like that. We all wish he did. He didn't. But it's a fun way to die. It's better than kicking someone out the window and being fuck you, Hitler.
Did you expect that we have a mini catalog of the way Hitler dies in our catalog of the podcast?
Yeah, we just need to watch Tom Cruise's Valkyrie.
And we also your Chaplin.
Yeah.
Which was also referenced in this film. But yeah, rewriting of history, tick, tick, tick. I personally am a human. Oh, I feel like Mark Zuckerberg. The fact that I'm announcing I'm a human. But like, I'm still learning about the world, especially World War II. I don't understand the intricacies. But obviously, there was a big rewriting, again, like you mentioned, in the scene, which I felt it was very therapeutic without having any sort of frame of reference. It felt like it was worth the build-up that we were getting to in this film. But I'll also throw it back to OT, because earlier, when Aldo Ryan was, introducing himself in the Inglorious Basterds, he was talking about how he's part Apache. And I made a comment while we were watching. It's interesting how he can talk about his white American lineage and his Native American lineage and not see the quandary and the contradiction in it.
Yeah, and that was a little rewriting there as well. You
did it again. You did it. We had to stop the film and have a 10-minute Delroy Lindo quarrel discussion with you because you just try to slide that in there.
Facts, though, it seems as if it was all cordial. Oh, yeah, we're just gonna
Shake
get all
hands.
this tactics and whatnot,
Yeah.
and it's very agreeable, and none of that fucking things happened.
And it's like, oh, you want us to share our land? And you're going to give me diseases in exchange for that? Oh, cool, guy.
Diseases and bullets.
Thank you, James O.T. Samuel. Wow. The harder they colonize, right, O.T.?
Yeah, that should be mine.
But rewriting of history. Thank you, Julio, for waiting. Tick, tick, tick. Let's get into the next direction stylistic choices coming from Rob. California / Hollywood / film / genre. I don't think we meet that here.
Oh, I don't think so either.
No, we left California alone for a little bit.
California.
Okay, let's leave it alone for a
Time
bit
to
longer.
party.
Let's leave it alone for a bit longer. Pop culture references from Julio. What you got for us, OT?
Oh, there's a reference to Charlie Chaplin's The Kid.
Yeah, I think in general there was a lot of reference to film and maybe a surprise to everyone or maybe a stretching exercise for OT and I if you're nasty. The oldest film we've covered was in the 1940s and it's OT's favorite film.
Mm-hmm. It's a Wonderful Life and it's a wonderful movie.
Well, opinion is not fact.
It is. In this household.
Well, I think in the ever-expanding understanding that we have to cinema, there was definitely a lot to dive into. But then there was also a lot of pointed use of propaganda in the films that were being referenced as well.
Mm.
All right, let's move on to the next section. We have casting / characters. Julio and Brent say feet. Brett makes a distinction of women feet, and throughout the reference degustation, Rob coined NF feet.
We got to see Bridget's feet.
All right. It just sounds like you're physically updating the feet wiki, but that's okay.
I am.
Only to find that someone already put it in there, right?
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay, OT. I thought it was like at the point, when like Miyazaki, like people kept saying that he liked planes. So he's like, fuck you guys. So then he didn't put planes in his next film. I thought we weren't going to get feet.
No, I knew we'll get feet somehow. And I'm pretty sure we'll get feet in Django as well.
Probably. Hopefully not Uncle Ruckus Samuel Jackson toes.
Yep.
The next theme we have is from Rob, the reluctant hero. Hans Landa. Just Landa on my lap. I would say he is the reluctant hero in this film.
Yeah, he did a 180, didn't he?
Like, I kind of want to have a little wee baby Seamus Archer reference discussion about Hans Landa, if that's okay, with the lens of being a reluctant hero, if that's okay with you, OT.
Go for it.
Well, it didn't seem like you fully agree with me, so I guess I want to know your opinion about Hans Landa being the reluctant hero. Because from a storytelling point of view, it would have carried out as it did in real life, if not for Hans Landa. Like, he was the pivotal, as you mentioned in Pulp Fiction, characters were faced with a decision, with a choice to make, and this was Hans Landa. I don't think it comes to the conclusion without him.
Even though him leaving the two other agents in the cinema caused them killing Hitler, I'm not sure I would describe him as reluctant hero. Reluctant hero has to have some doubts. He fully dived in both feet. It didn't feel like he was being traumatized. It didn't feel like he was trepidatious or he was battling himself to do something different. It feels like he thought this through, very calculated, and he knew his end goal would be, if I ever get to this situation, this will be it. I'm not sure I'd describe him as a reluctant hero. He did play a part in taking down of Hitler, but I don't know. He just doesn't sit with me as if being the reluctant hero.
You don't think he had a moral quandary?
We saw Butch in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
He was super reluctant.
Yeehaw!
As anyone would. I don't know if I would describe him like that. But then I would say Bridget played the reluctant hero quite well as well. Because she is German. She was acting as a spy for the Allied forces.
But then again, we don't know how she came into that situation. So even if she was coerced, that doesn't count as being reluctant either. She had no choice.
It doesn't seem like she was forced, but that's what we don't know. I just felt that if you can put up Hans as a reluctant hero, so can I put Bridget up?
Yeah, but I can also knock her down with logic and argument.
You're not Carrie Hilson. So just...
Thank you for providing a particular spice, OT. The same sort of spice that, I guess, came here directly to Inglourious Basterds and skipped Jackie Brown. Well, the reason why I put forward Hans is, again, he was pivotal from a storytelling point of view in this film. This doesn't get the ending that it gets if not for Hans Lander. And this is also a very important story from a screenwriting point of view, but also in a personal point of view. Be so fucking useful, be so fucking skillful that either side have no choice but to find value in you and keep you around.
I can see that, and that's true, but that still doesn't make you the reluctant hero. To me, the reluctant hero would definitely be Marcel.
Of course, and of course, just like you remembered Marcus's name in Pulp Fiction, you remembered Marcel's name in Inglourious Basterds. Continue, correspondent OT.
He first starts worrying about whether or not this is the right plan. He doesn't want the Nazis in the cinema in the first place. Mm-hmm. But he goes along because love and everything else in between. And at the end of it, he executes the plan to the letter. You know, once he gets the signal, he blows up the place and he's the hero. He brings out the house and everyone dies, including himself, I'm assuming.
Okay. But if Marcel wasn't even present, the film wouldn't end the way it ended, correct?
Yeah.
There you go. So he's not the overall hero of this film, sir.
He is the reluctant hero, though.
Hans Lander is the fucking reluctant hero, and I will fight you at dawn with Japanese swords.
You have to be bloody reluctant in the first place. He was
No. Hang on a second. Because we talk about personal gain all the time. We had a very interesting, a muy caliente back and forth in Judas and the Black Messiah about personal gain and how that is always superseded above the betterment or the interest of your people, right? So you could apply that here. Apparently you're not capable, but you could apply that here with Hans Lander. Right? Because he was embedded in a position of power because he was fucking skillful. This is part of the great things. It was kind of like McNulty in The Wire. You know what I mean? Like you couldn't hide shit from him because it was so fucking skillful, right? There was no reason for him not to advance the way he does. And in very humorous ways, we also see that when Bridget introduced her friends and he starts speaking in Italian.
Funniest scene ever.
He is absolutely the reluctant hero in the sense that he evaluates the benefits of being on either side and he finds a way to jump ship. And part of what's so transformative, like the dialogue is great. This film absolutely stands on its own, but it's the ending that makes this film, correct? Mm-hmm. And I love a Marcel, but he was like... He is inconsequential to the ending of this film. I'm so sorry to tell you.
No, it's not.
Look for your representation somewhere else, OT, because he is not pivotal to the ending of this film.
At the end of the day, who burnt down the cinema? Who killed everyone in there?
Yeah, but then you also had Teddy come out as well. And they came and they sprayed bullets as well. So it wasn't as if that fire was what killing everyone. It was people clamoring at the doors and getting shot at.
Yeah, that took a percentage of the people, but the fire took everyone else out.
I think we got two different cuts. I got the Tarantino cut and you got the OT cut.
Let's agree to disagree on this.
Yes, even though we know I'm correct, we'll agree to disagree. Let's move on. Julio casting old favorites and reviving their careers.
Maybe not reviving, but boosting Christoph Waltz's career a bit.
Yeah, I guess into like Western screens and that sort of thing. Again, it's a Christoph Waltz love fest, friends and lovers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's going to compel me to watch any Muppet film he's in, but Christoph Waltz love fest indeed. Let's move into the last section, racism / the N-word. This is coming from Brent. Every time I show one of his movies to someone that hasn't seen them, I always wait for the moment he or someone else drops the N-word to see how they react. I guess I'm going to cluster them all together. Paul says, are Quentin Tarantino's race-related quips justified in this film? And we've also got Julio saying racial slurs. So let's address the N-word specifically.
I don't think there was a use of N-word here.
There was.
Was there?
When the French people were talking. It said Negro in the subtitles, but when they verbally said it, it sounded like the N-word to me.
I must have missed that. If to that point, then I think it just felt part of.
It made sense.
It made sense.
It wasn't just randomly 4 white guys in a car talking about black women, Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah. It made sense to me, at least in that scenario.
Yeah, kind of the same as like the Confederate shop that we entered in Pulp Fiction as well. In that sense, it was justified. Coming to Paul's question again about the race-related quips being justified, Aldo really enjoyed insulting Germans, which cool. Enjoy your pastime. Put it on your CV if you like. But does he have any sort of like, I don't know, if you're going to roast people, can you have like a comprehensive sort of knowledge? Because every sort of insult was laced with kraut. Like, do you know anything else to insult German people with, or is it just kraut and Nazis are bad?
I don't think it needs to make sense to them. To them, the little they know, that's all. That's as much as they want to know.
Well, is it too much to ask to have more than surface level racism, OT?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's finish off with a lighter note, and this is from Ben. Why does Quentin Tarantino insist on including himself, usually as a racist, when he can't act?
Like you said, he included himself as someone who had already been killed. So that's the way to go. Without any lines.
But you don't need to be in it if you don't need to be in it.
Yeah, like he put himself in there, like how Martin Trey put an alien in the sequence. That's how you should be.
Yeah, I think if we're going to talk about level of director cameo involvement, it needs to be to the level and the funness of Taika playing a priest in Hunt for the Wilder People. Because behind that door are the vegetables, not Jesus. Like, it needs to add to it in some way, and it also needs to not affect the overall story, like with Tarantino and Pulp Fiction as well. Like, you shouldn't be taking up a large amount of screen time. You should be busy doing whatever the fuck directors are supposed to be doing in the background, unless you're Papeo and you don't want Denzel telling you what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, friends and lovers, what a delightful adventure. I do have a comment from our delightful patron, Brandy, and she says, funny, I was just thinking about Inglorious Basterds the other day. Christoph Waltz was such a charming asshole.
Yup.
That's the perfect way to say it, to be perfectly honest. All right, friends and lovers, this is usually where we finish off in a segment we call For Your Reference. Although this is the Reference Degustation, so this is a 6-set course menu of Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, Kill Bill, Inglourious Basterds. And again, Jamie laying upside down, cherry on top, we are going in Django Unchained.
Nice.
If you would like to see OT's cherry on Twitter and Instagram, we're at For Your Ref Pod.
Write us an email at hello@frpodcast.com.
We're also on all the awards for Christoph Waltz, if you're nasty, podcast, if you'd like to leave a rating and review. And we'll see you guys in the last course.
See ya.
Yeehaw!